because they're the ones that do all the hard work for the old retired gay couples that don't have kids. So in reality, if humanity went majority homosexual, majority, we would collapse as a society. As a humanity, we would not be able to sustain ourselves. The older people would be way too many for the younger, few heterosexually born children. Right? Every gay person was born through heterosexuality. Right? Born through homosexuality. Right? So every gay person wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the fact that parents were heterosexual. Right? So imagine an island. There's 100 people, all gay. Will there be another generation?
Yeah, so this is really the purpose with which we were created.
Society will cease to exist. The core function of any species, being spiders and humans alike, is to reproduce and continue the species. That would end if homosexuality became prevalent.
I think that's
a very real example.
That's a very slippery slope.
We don't want to go down that slippery slope. We want to stay on that straight path. Look at France today.
Yeah, but in many other countries like in East Asia, where homosexual is not like South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, China.
South Korea, Japan, both countries where you have the exact same problem, where the society has unable to produce enough children, and right now Japan, South Korea, for example we gave, is inviting immigrants even from Africa to deal with their racism because they need people to function. Go look at Japan.
We're not taking any money for anything. We don't
That their model has made it and they're unsustainable right now. The Japanese cannot function without heterosexuals from other countries that had babies, bringing them in to keep them going.
But that's
Right?
Japan and South Korea, South Korea and China. These are not countries that are known for homosexuality.
I mean, most of the Asian countries, there are more homosexuals in those countries than there are like Indonesia, Malaysia, the Muslim majority countries out there. That's where the workers are coming because of heterosexuality.
But then when you say about like France having not enough babies, directly because
that is one of the factors.
Yeah, one of the factors, but you
and
can't
the other factors are all anti-Islamic factors as well. Casual sex without wanting to have children, not wanting to get married because you don't want to leave your lifestyle of partying, right? Everything that Islam would fix. Name a Muslim country facing the same problem.
I don't have knowledge for that.
Zero. Not a single Muslim country in the world has the problem that we can't sustain ourselves because nobody's having kids.
We would have seen it shift.
Why? Because Islam is a solution. Right? Now, if it wasn't Western countries causing wars and Muslim countries, we wouldn't even have this immigration issue. But as countries go for themselves, Muslim countries would have a natural lifestyle, not as much homosexuality or self-indulgence of desires. We don't have these problems because Islam is a solution. Now, if you brought Islam to Japan, the people in Japan said, you know what, instead of being gay and instead of just living up our worldly desires, we're going to live a family-focused life, we're going to have kids, we're going to have a morality that stops us from committing suicide every time the stock market crashes, you wouldn't have that problem. Right? Makes sense.
But you still haven't mentioned how homosexual, you mentioned about biologically and economically and from social perspective, how this
Societal harm perspective.
how does that bring to morality then?
Okay, morality. What is morality? What do we see as right and wrong? We agreed earlier that for us to have a morality, we need divine laws. We said the good thing about religion is to give us morality. So when the Creator tells us that this lifestyle is wrong, this will harm your society, this will harm your family, right? And that means we need to then follow the divine objectives of right? Just like murder. Why is murder wrong? We would agree morally it's incorrect, right? But if somebody who's a professional hitman thinks, no, it's fine. That's not subjective. We go back to the divine morality that tells us it's wrong. Divine morality tells us homosexuality is right? Every scripture, whether it's the Old Testament, Leviticus, New Testament, Romans, the Quran, and so on, tells us homosexuality. Why not?
Under the CVC, I think that's I think that's what makes morality attractive. It's a preference.
We agree that things that cause societal harm are bad for society. Like you said about guns that potentially guns could kill few people, but it's not going to stop society from existing. Homosexuality, as I just explained, if it's because prevalent, if unchecked, could end humanity as we know it. You don't think that's wrong?
I think ending humanity.
But we're actually seeing it. We're seeing countries where homosexuality is prevalent having fewer babies. Homosexuals can't have children if they adopt from a heterosexual, right? Seeing that their societies are crumbling, and the only reason they exist still is because they're bringing immigrants from heterosexual societies to carry on the world. Right? France, Japan, South Korea, you get the examples yourself. So don't you think an action that is a threat to the existence of humanity is immoral?
The 2 points because it's a factor that making France and Japan, which is very demographically, France and Japan, which are two countries very demographically different in terms of population.
I mean, in France, there is a large number of homosexuals. In Japan, there's actually, amongst Asian countries, a very large number of homosexuals, right? A country that has pride parades and all of that, right? Now, let's take any country you want that has a large homosexual population and compare it to any country Islamic that doesn't have. Pick two countries. Let's take Denmark. Denmark, for example, let's take Saudi Arabia. You want to take another country?
No. I just want to have data knowledge.
Alright, so just so you know, in Denmark, for example, where homosexuality is very open, common, and encouraged and all of that, you're seeing where there's no workforce. And right now in Denmark, I've been there, if you go to a factory, it's all Moroccans, Algerians working. So their society, if it wasn't for immigrants in Muslim countries, would collapse. On the other hand, in Saudi Arabia, they have more kids than they know what to do with. Right? Society is functioning and flourishing. Right? In the UAE or in Qatar and all these countries, Muslim countries, they have kids. They're not dependent. They're not destroying, even though they're growing their society. Right? They have people come work in their country. They don't need it. Right? So if we look at these clear examples, we can see in front of our eyes a harm to society that would come from homosexuality becoming prevalent. If tomorrow more than 50% of Denmark became gay, right? People didn't stop it, and you didn't get heterosexuals to come and work for you, their children. That society would collapse. You would have old people sitting in the streets, not being able to eat because there's nobody out there working to feed them. You don't see that as a people?
Again, it's a factor, but you have to admit it's a very minor factor, and that's not.
I would disagree, and that's why I said give me any example.
Because economically and socially,
economically Denmark's strong.
Economically and socially, it has to be fundamentally why the demographic change in Japan.
Absolutely not, because there are countries that are economically stronger than Japan. For example, Qatar. Qatar has a higher GDP than Japan per capita. Qatar has a higher GDP than Japan. But Qatar doesn't have that problem. Why?
Because it hasn't entered a steady state yet.
It hasn't entered a steady state? When was the last time Qatar had a war or a revolution? It's been steady since its creation.
No, steady state in terms of economically.
It has been steady for, at least 100 years now, that I know. Qatar has not had a revolution, has a strong economy.
It means do you agree Qatar is still having like exponential growth in per capita income?
Not really. It's been steady since the oil production began, which is pretty close to when Japan started to rebuild itself. Because Japan had been destroyed after World War II anyway. So in the 60s and 70s when it started to rebuild, Qatar found oil at that time, and since then it has had steady growth and it has a good level of It's had the highest GDP of any country in the world per capita.